Welcome to another edition of the Power Chat. I'm PowerChat publisher Tim Fitzgerald. We're in the beautiful WTC Gig Parrot Studios here in downtown Manhattan. And we are sponsored by our friends in Tulsa at Blue Mark Energy. Pete Hughes is entering his second season as Kansas State baseball coach, and he is darn happy to be here doing it. In the first half of this Power Chat, we go back to his roots in Boston and the journey that brought him to Manhattan, Kansas to this time. Let's get after it. Here's the Power Chat with Pete Hughes. Welcome to another edition of GoPowerCat.com's Power Chat. I am Tim Fitzgerald, joined by Kansas State baseball coach Pete Hughes. Coach, thank you very much for coming in today to our studios. A little story for you. So me and a buddy were heading to Aggieville the other night. Can't remember what it's for. We're just going to go have dinner, a couple of beers. And our Uber driver was a buddy of yours.
Yep, he's made his way around town. That's for sure. You know, he, quick to drop my name everywhere he goes. You know,
Wants to be associated with the good feelings.
Yeah, you know, he's a college buddy of my wife, and myself. You know, we all went to Davidson College, and you know, if you're a buddy with me and my wife, you're a buddy for life. So. Yep. You just don't want him hanging out in your basement too long.
Seems like a good dude.
Great guy. Yep.
Got us to where we needed to go. Brockton, Mass. Is that considered a suburb of Boston, or is it just south of Boston?
Yeah, Brockton's probably 20 miles south of Boston. Yeah. Working class, lower to middle class town. You know, back in the day when all the immigrants were coming over through Ellis Island, Brockton was a place of employment because at one point all the shoes in our country were made in Brockton. All the shoe factories were there. So I grew up in a town that was very diverse. You know, there was the Lithuanian village, the Jewish section, the Italian section, and it was a phenomenal place to grow up. Rocky Marciano, you know, 49-0, the only heavyweight to be undefeated, untied in his career. Marvelous Marvin Hagler. You know, 2 world champs from my hometown in the sport of boxing. So great place to grow up. Wouldn't have changed anything.
A lot of Irish Boston stuff going on there.
Yep.
St.
Patty's Day is a holiday. You know, the real St. Patty's Day. I've heard about the other one around here, which is an interesting concept. I don't like it because it's during baseball season, so I try to schedule away for that, you know. The smart coach schedules away on fake Patty's Day.
It's a smart move, yeah.
Yeah, we would have a great day. I mean, and wherever I've gone, I've celebrated St. Patrick's Day. And my first head coaching job was at Trinity University in San Antonio, Texas. And a buddy of mine from Boston was my assistant coach. We had green uniforms. We painted the bases green. We had Irish music playing. And, awesome. And I think we were the only 2 that knew it was St. Patrick's Day. But we're going to do the same thing this year here. We play Nebraska on St. Patrick's Day. We're going to break out green uniforms and green hats, and it'll be a good celebration.
I was wearing a shirt, a Life is Good shirt with a shamrock on it, on vacation, and a Notre Dame fan walked by and stopped, and I go, "No, I'm actually Irish. I get to wear this. It's Timothy George Fitzgerald. I'm Irish."
That's legit. Yep, that's legit.
Yep. What'd you do growing up in Brockton? I mean, were you a baseball player immediately, or box, or anything?
I played football and baseball,
okay,
you know, my whole life, and Brockton's known for its football as well. And you know, if you grew up in that town, you're going to play all 3. If you know, it was football in the fall, and then you play CYO Church League hoops, and and then you get ready for baseball season, But there was always a game going on, and I didn't know what to do, when I got out of high school, because the only thing I knew was football and baseball. So I made my decision to go to a school that would facilitate that for me.
Yeah.
There was no way I could identify as being one or the other. Well, I wasn't good enough in football to have many options, believe me. So I was going to be the next short quarterback at Boston College to win the Heisman Trophy.
Nice.
Next to Doug Flutie. And I went to Boston College High School. So that didn't work out. So I went to Davidson College, and I played football and baseball there, and had a great experience. And I got to play 2 sports that I loved. I got a great degree. I met my wife there, and but it all happens from we are who we are, and we're defined by how we grow up and where we grow up. And,
yeah.
And Brockton, Massachusetts is a special place.
That's awesome. How often do you make it back?
I'll go once or twice a year.
Good.
The same guys sitting at the same bar stools, the same place.
Freaking awesome. In a way you feel bad for them, in a way you're happy for them.
Yep. Nope, that's home. It always will be. Yeah.
That's really cool. What was it like, Davidson, playing there?
Davidson's a real academic place, yeah. And it's in North Carolina, and judging on our conversation and my accent, I grew up a little bit north of the Mason-Dixon line, so I kind of stuck out in Davidson, North Carolina.
Imagine it was a pretty thick accent back then too.
It was. I mean, mine is really softened. When I go back and sometimes I can't believe the way my buddies I grew up with talk.
Yeah.
It's mine has softened, believe it or not. But we went down to Davidson, and I didn't know anything about Davidson College. I just knew I could get a good degree and play 2 sports, and it turned out to be a great experience. I got a degree that was worth something. It opened really my network into another part of the country, and
right.
Met some of the best friends, my lifelong friends there, and but the worth of that degree actually got me my first 2 jobs in baseball, believe
right.
it or not. I interviewed at Trinity University in San Antonio, and the president of the university looked at my resume and didn't ask me any questions about baseball or recruiting or how young I was and all this other stuff. Yeah, he could not believe that I had graduated from Davidson College because his daughter wanted to go there in the worst way. And immediately, I knew I had the job,
That's amazing.
And then Boston College job opens up 2 years later. I'm 30 years old, and they were looking for a young guy, which I was at the time, who had an academic background, went to Davidson College, and could identify with the student-athlete experience. And I got my second job at Boston College because where I went to school and the worth of the degree.
That's amazing. When you started in coaching, though, you were balancing baseball, football.
My first full-time job was in football. It was at Northeastern University. It was 1AA at the time, and they no longer have a football program. But I was full go, man. I was going to be a football coach, and I was doing the GA deal, paying your dues, restricted earnings, and then I got hired full-time at 24 years old. I might have been the youngest full-time Division I football coach. And I worked with some great guys in our staff. One of my roommates was Doug Marone, the Jacksonville Jaguars head coach. Joe Philbin is one of my best buddies, who's former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, worked with me at Northeastern. So we've been around quite a few guys with that profession, but at the end of the day, I wanted to work my butt off at something and be able to compete more than 11 or 12 days out of the year.
Interesting.
So with baseball, I knew I could be a head coach at an earlier age. I wanted to do that. I wanted to make my own decisions. But I wanted to work hard and compete 56 times a year. It always bothered me as a competitor to get beat on a Saturday, and then you got to wait 7 days to come around to feel good again or have the chance to feel good again. But football it gave me work ethic in this sport. It gave me a different perspective that wasn't happening at that time in recruiting. Football coaches recruit the right way. They've done it for a long time, personalizing the experience. I incorporated the home visit in baseball. Back then in New England, it wasn't happening. I think we beat a lot of schools in New England recruiting when I was at Boston College because I approached recruiting from a football standpoint.
You go to San Antonio, be a head coach. A little culture shock in that?
Yeah, I've been a stranger in strange lands, and it's just all about getting out there and meeting people and changing perceptions. And just hustling. You know, San Antonio was great. We loved that city. I've always judged every move I made. If we take this job, we'll be happy there for the rest of our lives, and we could still be at Trinity University, be very happy. What a great school in a beautiful city.
Back up in the South at Virginia Tech. I got a nephew working on his PhD there, and he absolutely loves it.
Kids don't leave that place. Yeah. And, from my experience, I was there 7 years. Kids graduate, they stay there, because they just fall in love with the town. It's one of the most beautiful parts of our country, and the Blue Ridge Valley. We raised our family there, We took the job because I wanted my kids to grow up on a campus. At Boston College, they were 50 miles away. When you have 5 kids and you make $38,000 a year, you can't live in Boston proper. Yeah. You got to move out, right? So my kids are never on that campus, so we took the Virginia Tech job. We bought a house a mile from campus. My kids grew up in that environment, and you can't put a price tag on that to raise your family in a college setting, especially like Virginia Tech. And that's why we love Manhattan. I mean, it is Blacksburg, Virginia times 2, and it's a lot of similarities, a college town, but the people make every experience, and the people were phenomenal there, just like they are here.
Coaching at Boston College, though, you mentioned how rough it was on the family, but you took over a program that didn't know winning, and you got it winning. And I feel like, looking at your resume, that kind of made you the coach you are. You kind of defined how you have to go about things, and I was interested to see the rise of that Boston College program. That was impressive, Coach.
Yeah, it was a labor of love. Obviously you grow up there. I already told you I wanted to be the quarterback, so the next best thing was be the baseball coach there. For me to be the baseball coach at the school that you grew up looking up to, my dad went there, my brother went there, he's a double eagle, and for me to get that opportunity at 30 years old, there were a lot of obstacles, but when you're young and motivated, nothing's going to stand in your way and nothing's going to slow you down. We didn't have a baseball field. The outfield was the football practice field. We didn't have a fence in the fall. We couldn't practice on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday because football was practicing on the field. So on Sundays after home football games, it was a tailgate area, our infield. First thing we do Sunday morning as a team, we'd walk the grid on the field to pick up chicken bones, broken glass, charcoal, right? And then recruit to try to beat Notre Dame, Clemson, North Carolina. Then we get into the ACC. And we did, but that just tells you that there's some really good baseball players in New England. And you got to go hustle and create relationships and recruiting so people look beyond chicken bones and glass and they want to be around you as a coach and your staff and people. So it was challenging. I went running for that job, believe me. I didn't, we had 3 scholarships, everybody else at 11.7, but it didn't matter to me. And I talked to Gene DiFilippo, who was the AD at Boston College, during the interview, and he wanted to talk salary, and I said, I'll take a pay cut for this opportunity. And he stopped the interview. He said, don't ever say that on an interview again. But that's how motivated I was, and we figured it out, and we had a great 8 years, and I think we left the program in much better shape than when we took it over, and got a lot of kids drafted and a lot of kids graduated.
You had 3 scholarships? Is that what you said?
We had 3 scholarships at Boston College.
How far did you divide those up?
You got between 35 guys back then 27. So, yeah, it's just, and Boston College is a pretty expensive place. So you're really selling the experience, the education, and relationships for people to invest in you and sending their kids there.
Man, I want to hire you as a salesman.
Yeah, I might have been better when I was younger.
We were all more active in those type of things. But eventually, you realize I have to do more for my family, right? And I mean, this isn't working in the long term. How many kids do you have at that point?
We had all 5.
You had all 5. Yeah.
Yep, and they could never get to our games because of the traffic and the commute. Even if I wanted to bring them into a hockey or a basketball game, you got little kids and you're getting home at midnight.
Yeah.
It was logistically, it just wasn't working for what I wanted out of the coaching experience. I wanted to raise a family hand in hand in that experience.
Right.
You can't do it when you're commuting 50 miles. So we took the Virginia Tech job, and it was in bad shape. Virginia Tech was 3-27 in the ACC the year before we got there, and they're 0-15 on the road. We had just swept them at Boston College. So everybody was looking at, why are you taking the Virginia Tech job? Well, one reason, so I could raise my family the right way. You got one chance to do it.
Right.
I'm not going to screw that up. And number two, anytime you can get south of the Mason-Dixon line in baseball, it's advantageous.
Sure.
In recruiting and developing teams, all that stuff. Weather. So it was everything I needed and wanted for my family and for the profession. And we just got to work. We went from being 3-27 in the ACC to the last year before I left, we hosted a regional there. We were 11th in the country, and a lot of exciting things happened there. And I like to think we changed a lot, facilities-wise and expectations, standards, excitement in the community. Great place to raise a family.
Got to be rewarding when you look back at what you started with and what you ended up with. Really rewarding. Go to Norman after that, correct? Not a good fit?
Did I go to Norman?
Yeah, see, that's what I thought.
Yeah, see, I've been moving forward since I left that place.
Yeah, it just wasn't right, was it?
You know what? When I left Oklahoma, we were a 2 seed in the national tournament.
Right. Not bad.
I'm one of 2 coaches of a 2 seed team to get fired. Had a 3.25 GPA, the highest in the athletic department, the highest in the history of the baseball program. I received the highest award of any staff member for academic and community prowess amongst your team. We raised over $250,000 for childhood cancer research at OU Children's Medical. And I left that place with my head held high.
Did it right?
Absolutely. With everyone coming back the next year. So, sometimes, and it's a good lesson for my kids, we learn a lot of lessons around athletics and being in my dugout and my crazy profession, but sometimes you got to stick up and defend your value system and who you are despite the consequences.
Right.
And that's what I did. But you know what? The greatest thing that I got out of Norman was coming to Manhattan, Kansas. I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
And this is where I belong. You just get there in a different way. Now, for my children, my 3 oldest boys flourished in Norman, Oklahoma. Baseball, everything.
Good sports town. Yep.
Yeah, so it's not always about dad.
Mm-hmm.
But if I left a 2 seed coming back, I feel like I did a pretty good job there, and my head, believe me, has been held high.
Couldn't have been easy for the year in between in which you went to Georgia as the volunteer assistant, whatever it's classified. You left family at that point?
Yep, it was.
Man.
This profession's phenomenal, and 99% of the time, you get fired, then you kind of, it knocks you back on your heels. It's embarrassing to your wife and kids at any level.
Sure.
You're a small town, you grocery store with administrator. It's just not easy all the time. A lot of people lose their jobs, but it's not always on the front page. And I can handle that, but it's not what my wife and kids signed up for.
Absolutely.
So then you got to regroup. And for me, I knew the best thing for me, I only know one way. I got to put a uniform on and I have to work. Now, I was getting paid still for a year. So I needed to be around really good people with a high value system once again, right? And I just needed to work. And that's what Athens, Georgia gave me. And the University of Georgia, the baseball program, opened up their arms and they let me go to work and do my thing. And
Nice.
I put a uniform on around a great group of people. I'm not so sure, I don't know. I'm not so sure I get this job or I'm ready for my next job if I didn't keep myself in that right frame of mind competitively. And I just don't know what I would do if I couldn't go to work every day, and at the pace I'm used to going for the last 30 years.
And your wife wanted you to go to work every day.
She did, and you know what? I wish I could have exactly, but I wish I could have had her with me, and you know, that was the first time we've been separated since college, and you know, that's a tough thing too. Tough. You know, I took one of my boys with me, and you know, we were going to make it the best experience we could, and a year later we did.
How hard did you come after this job?
Oh, I wasn't very interested in it at first.
Interesting.
Well, just because I knew Kansas State from a recruiting standpoint and what their reputation was, and then from a competitive standpoint, I knew it too.
It's hard.
So it's a hard job, and I just knew where the resources were, and it was in the bottom of the league. Then I looked at the landscape in college baseball. There weren't many jobs opening, you know, when I was done at Georgia that spring. And then I spoke to Gene Taylor on the telephone, and I immediately became interested in Kansas State. He said, "Why don't you just come and meet with us and spend some time with us?" And it was Memorial Day. I went to the Kansas City airport, the Marriott, and met with Gene and Casey Scott, who I've always respected competing against. He's a college baseball guy, and he's a first-class guy. I spent 3 hours with those guys, and I wasn't interested in any other job other than Kansas State.
Interesting.
It's all about people and relationships. I was not going to make that mistake a second time in my career. And I've always gotten the baseball right wherever we've gone. My last stretch of this career, especially after my past experience, I was going to err on the side of people. And Gene Taylor is very, very rare at this level.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a real guy, a coach's AD, and that doesn't happen at the Power 5 level.
No,
and
it's big business.
I told my wife about Kansas State. She goes, "Well, we're familiar with the region, the conference." I said, "Yeah, I'm not too excited about it. It's a lot of work to be done." And then I called her after I met with Gene and Casey for 3 hours, and for me, there was no other place I wanted to work. And they also had the vision of the new facilities and the enhancements, which I always thought if Kansas State got a little serious with baseball, now you got something to sell. There's no reason why Kansas State can't be at a high level in baseball if the administration and your ADs invested.
Right.
And they proved to me they were. And obviously, you know, I just left a beautiful office from a beautiful building, and you know, their word was really good, and I knew that.
If you're going to do baseball at Kansas State, you got to do it. Yeah, you can't get by with. They had some success, but you can't. Not in this conference. Not when you've got, you know, in the past, Wichita State and Nebraska bookending you, and they're having success. So it's not all the region. That can't be your whole excuse. And they finally got serious about it. Toynton won, and now what they've done with the Toynton expansion is really impressive. And I really want to get into that in the next half of the Power Chat, because I hope fans make it out to Toynton Stadium this spring, and because that place, from everything I've seen, is really impressive. And we're going to continue the Power Chat right after this at GoPowerCat.com.